Did Jesus of Nazareth, the founder of one of the most influential religions in history, really exist? And if he did, what do we truly know about his life, actions, and words? Are there any proofs outside of the Bible confirming the existence of Jesus as described in the New Testament? Most historians, regardless of their beliefs, agree that Jesus was a real historical figure. Many also believe that some key events in his life, as told in the New Testament, likely happened. However, in recent times, more people have begun to question whether Jesus actually lived or if the stories about him are fictional. This raises the question, is the Bible a reliable source, or are its accounts made up? People often wonder if there are documents or physical evidence that prove Jesus Christ's existence. Dr. Byron McCain, an archaeologist and historian from Florida Atlantic University, says, "I don't know of any qualified historian or archaeologist who doubts the existence of Jesus of Nazareth." Similarly, Dr. Eric Myers, a professor of Jewish studies at Duke University, agrees. He adds, "The details of Jesus' life have been debated for centuries, but no serious scholar denies he was a real person." They compare denying Jesus' existence to denying climate change, emphasizing the strong historical consensus. Still, skeptics argue that there is no direct archaeological evidence, writings by Jesus himself, or contemporary documents confirming his existence. This is true, but by those standards, we would have to question the existence of many historical figures, including some of the most significant ones. For example, even the existence of Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor who ordered Jesus' crucifixion, was confirmed only recently through archaeological evidence. New Testament scholar and atheist Dr. Bart Ehrman notes that records from Jesus' time are scarce for almost everyone, not just Jesus. Yet, this lack of direct evidence doesn't negate his historicity. What do you think? Was Jesus a real historical figure? Share your thoughts in the comments. In 1961, a significant archaeological discovery in Caesarea Maritima shed light on Pontius Pilate, a figure from the time of Jesus. Archaeologists found a damaged stone, now called the Pilate stone, that mentions Pilate as the prefect of Judea. This discovery confirmed Pilate's existence, which was less well documented compared to Jesus. The stone also suggests Pilate dedicated a temple or important structure. Interestingly, some accounts describe Pilate as a skilled dancer, hinting at his early education. Dr. Bart Ehrman highlights the multiple independent sources about Jesus, such as the Gospels and Paul's letters, some of which were written in Jesus' native language, Aramaic, shortly after his death. These writings meet the same historical standards applied to other ancient figures, and most historians, including secular ones, consider the New Testament a valid source. Archaeological findings have also supported many events described in the Bible, proving they weren't merely fictional. The Gospels include unflattering details, like disputes among the apostles, Peter denying Jesus, and Jesus' execution as a criminal, facts unlikely to be fabricated. Traditionally, the Messiah was expected to be a victorious figure, so the depiction of Jesus' suffering adds credibility to these accounts. Paul's letters, written 20 to 30 years after Jesus' death, also corroborate key events. Paul mentions meeting James, Jesus' brother, and staying with Peter, showing that people close to Jesus were alive when Christianity began spreading across Judea and the Roman Empire. If Jesus hadn't existed, critics of Christianity, including Jewish and Roman leaders, would have exposed this. Instead, even non-Christian sources, like the Roman historian Tacitus, acknowledge Jesus. Tacitus, writing in 115 AD, describes Jesus' crucifixion under Pilate and the spread of Christianity despite persecution. This evidence from both Christian and non-Christian sources strongly supports Jesus' existence as a historical figure. People were brutally punished during Emperor Nero's reign. Some were dressed in animal skins and attacked by dogs. Others were crucified or burned alive as human torches to light up the night. Nero even used his own gardens for these horrifying events, participating while dressed as a charioteer or riding in a chariot. Although the victims were seen as criminals under Roman law, the public began to sympathize with them. The extreme cruelty of the punishments made it seem like Nero was driven by personal brutality rather than justice. There are debates about the reliability of Tacitus, a Roman historian, as some think he might have relied on Christian sources without independent verification. However, Tacitus was known for using evidence in his work, even if much of it is now lost. As a senator, he had access to official records and likely first-hand knowledge of Christianity in Rome. Most historians trust Tacitus's account as an independent source for evidence of Jesus' existence. Another key historian of the time, Flavius Josephus, also acknowledged Jesus. Born in 37 AD in Jerusalem to a wealthy family, Josephus had a priestly father and a mother from the Hasmonean dynasty. During the Jewish-Roman conflict, he led Jewish forces in Galilee but was defeated in 67 AD during the siege of Yodfat. Josephus and others hid in caves, where they drew lots to decide who would kill whom to avoid capture, as suicide was forbidden. Josephus and one other man survived and chose to surrender. Josephus gained favor with Vespasian, the Roman commander, by predicting he would become emperor. When this came true, Vespasian freed Josephus and granted him Roman citizenship. Josephus later served as an advisor to Titus during the siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD. Today, Josephus is famous for his writings, especially the Jewish War, which details Jewish history, the destruction of the temple, and the Jewish people's displacement. His other work, Antiquities of the Jews, is essential for early Christian studies. It includes mentions of Herod the Great, John the Baptist, Pontius Pilate, and Jesus. In Antiquities of the Jews, written about 50 years after Jesus' execution, Josephus references Jesus twice. While some parts of the text were likely altered by later Christians, historians generally agree the core mentions are authentic. Josephus described Jesus as a wise man, a teacher, and someone who performed extraordinary deeds. His accounts remain critical for understanding this historical period. He gained many followers, including Jews and Greeks. He was sentenced to death by crucifixion under Pilate. After his death, his disciples claimed he appeared alive again, as foretold by the prophets. These followers, later called Christians, continue to exist today. An Arabic version from the 10th century gives a slightly different perspective, highlighting Jesus' good character and virtue. It mentions his disciples believed he appeared alive after his death, which made them see him as the Messiah. Some details in these accounts are debated. For example, Josephus, a Jewish historian, wrote about Jesus. While some suggest Josephus may have converted to Christianity, this doesn't match his other writings. Historians believe parts of his writings about Jesus might have been altered, but most agree they offer early evidence of Jesus' historical existence. In his 20th book, Josephus mentions James, the brother of Jesus, called the Christ, executed under a high priest who abused his power. Josephus also wrote about John the Baptist, describing his influence and Herod's fear of him. Herod imprisoned and executed John, which some saw as divine punishment for Herod's actions. Other historical references to Jesus include Tacitus, Suetonius, and Pliny the Younger. Tacitus describes Jesus' execution under Pilate, while Suetonius mentions riots involving Christus, possibly referring to Jesus. Pliny notes early Christians worshipping Jesus. While evidence is limited, most historians agree Jesus of Nazareth existed, was baptized by John the Baptist, and gathered followers who spread his teachings after his death. Jesus is widely believed to have upset both Jewish and Roman leaders, leading to his crucifixion under Pontius Pilate. After his death, his followers kept sharing his teachings, even though they often faced persecution. While there's debate about whether everything in the New Testament is historically accurate, most historians see it as a helpful source for understanding what Jesus taught, even if some details may have changed over time. Like Socrates, whose ideas were written down by his followers long after he died, Jesus' teachings were recorded decades after his death, based on oral traditions. While we don't know his exact words, the general message of his teachings is thought to have been preserved, even with later interpretations added. Some people question whether Jesus really existed, but most historians are confident he did. Dr. Eric Meyer compares denying Jesus' existence to denying climate change. Both views go against solid evidence. If you enjoyed this content, please consider supporting us by clicking the Super Thanks button below. Your support helps us keep sharing the inspiring story of Jesus. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos, and check out the next video on your screen. Thanks for watching.